Hello, and welcome back to another great episode of hashtag Screw the W2. And actually got a great guest as well as a fellow podcaster for today, Randy Smith. Welcome to the show.
John, thanks so much for having me on the show. When I saw the name of it, I'm like, that is absolutely something I need to be on. So thank you for having me.
You bet. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out. I might find someone on Fiverr to trying to think of like a logo, like a large screw going through a cubicle, or I don't know. I'll figure out something later. So.
Love
But
it.
anyways, Randy, maybe you can take us back for my listeners never heard of you or maybe aren't familiar with your story. Can you take us back to what your W-2 job was and what was an average day like for you?
Yeah. So I was in corporate America for about 25 years.
Okay.
I actually spent 20 of those years with two separate companies, so two 10-year stints, as I
Okay.
like to call it.
Yep.
Stints, kind of like stints in the clink, I guess. But anyways, no, it wasn't that bad. I actually had an amazing career, and I was in sales and sales leadership, working for Fortune 100 and Fortune 200 companies.
Okay.
Um, the last 8 years of my career, I was in outside sales. I did some travel to some local, like I'm here in Phoenix, so
Oh, okay.
there was a 3 year stint where I flew to Vegas every other week for a few days.
Oh, wow.
Um, but the last 5 or 6 years, I have been working from home, and then I would drive and meet with clients in person. And it was a really neat job. I loved it. I got to meet with small business owners and entrepreneurs, and just hear some amazing stories. And I made very, very good money while I was doing it, and got to influence the organization in the direction of some of the things. So I've got nothing but positive things to say about my time in corporate America, quite frankly.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, my story is a little different. Where instead of screw the W-2 is more of a middle finger, but I want to keep this YouTube friendly, so to speak. So, but
Yeah.
even with that career, Randy, I know you said you kind of had two stints, and obviously over 2 decades in corporate America. But was there a certain moment, series of moments, or maybe a turning point where this isn't for me. I got to get out of here. There's something different, or what was that like for you?
Yeah. I think probably the big realization in corporate America is that you really don't have any control over, you know, you don't have a whole lot of control over the career. Even if you're a top producing, high income W-2 person, like you can get axed, which was my experience.
Oh, okay.
I got laid off
Oh, wow.
the year after I got the President's Club Award, and had all
Jeez.
the accolades and all of the leadership exposure and all of that type of stuff. So no matter how good you're doing, you don't really have any control over whether you get laid off or fired
Mm.
throughout that process. So um, and being in sales, the old saying, go to bed a hero, wake up a zero, for 20 years, like regardless of how good you did last month, it is what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
And 1 or 2 or 3 months of less than stellar results, and um yeah, you could be on the chopping block. So it's a classic sales job that
Yeah.
you either perform or you're gone.
Hmm.
So
So,
yeah.
all right. Well, now, obviously, your direction was a little bit different, where you obviously were laid off. But, what was the thought process then, or what were your next steps once you were laid off? I mean, you were out of the rat race, so to speak. But as far as
Yeah.
you know, getting passive income or having some additional streams of income versus, well, I lost my job. I guess I need to find another one.
Yeah. No, and it's a good question. I actually got laid off from both of those companies after being with them for 10 years. So,
Oh, wow.
and I had very different experiences with the two different layoffs. On the first one, I had been there for 10 years. I had won the awards and done very, very well there. And then when I got laid off, I did get a severance on it. So the clock started ticking that,
Mm,
the second this severance is gone, like I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna do.
right.
I hadn't been smart with my money. I had not invested well. I had not done anything outside of my W-2 or my 401k. So it
Okay.
was pretty scary. And, coming towards the end of that first layoff, I was faced with the decision of like, I either need to go out and get some type of job, otherwise, like ultimately, I'll lose the house and
Yeah.
lose it all, or I got to just take something to pay the bills. And fortunately, as it would be, I ended up landing at this last company and had another great 10-year career. But the lesson I learned in that was, as soon as I got financially stable again and got my feet on the ground, I was dead set that I'm going to start saving money. I'm paying off all of my debt. I was a Dave Ramsey baby
Okay.
step guy. People think I'm nuts for some of the things we did with our finances, but I will tell you, there is nothing better than knowing, like literally, if I just put food and pay my electric bill, I've got no other bills. So
Gotcha.
that's a pretty nice feeling. And as I started to perform at a higher level and make more money in that role, I started looking into real estate investing more and more and more,
Okay.
because anybody that has been around high wealth, high net worth individuals, a very large portion of them got involved in one way, shape, or form in the real
Yep.
estate space. So I started buying single families, houses out of state, and found very, very quickly that that was not the path that I wanted to scale to leave the
Okay.
W 2. And I started passively investing in apartments and
Okay.
mobile home parks and self storage and things like that. So, true passive income, you invest in a deal and then the checks just start rolling in. And like
Mhm.
literally, mailbox money is like a real thing,
Right.
so,
Or ACH
so
money. I don't think many checks are sent out nowadays.
you're right. You're right. Absolutely. So yeah, when the fateful day would come again, when I would get laid off, I had been passively investing for years, and
Okay.
the majority of my monthly expenses were covered by passive income.
Okay. So the first go around, it was kind of like, I don't have a plan B. But then when you had the uh new job, the new stint, so to speak, then it's like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm not in this situation ever again, basically.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what I know today is that you don't have to wait until, like, I was very, very conservative and cautious, and I'm going to pay off all the debt and do all of this other stuff
Hmm.
before I start doing this. You don't have to do that. People,
Hmm.
the average Joe, can invest in passive syndications
Yeah.
and actually create livable income from
Hmm.
those investments versus having it all socked away in your 401k that you can't touch till you're
Right.
65 or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and even with my story, and like, I shared at the, my first episode too, it's just, as society, we've been programmed to shovel all this money into a retirement account. And when you're 62, 65, 67, whatever, when you retire, then you can really enjoy the life. And I always kind of look at it's like, well, yeah, but what's the guarantee you're going to make it to age 65?
Of
2 weeks
course.
ago, my neighbor passed away unexpectedly at age 52. So I've always looked at why not have income, whether, like you said, syndications, real estate, whatever, that pays you now and in retirement versus just create this big pile of money and hope you live long enough to start spending it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And as I've become more educated in this space and got to experience what it's like to be sitting on 401ks that you can't live off of.
Yep.
It's this, you hear about the golden handcuffs where like
Hmm.
literally you can't leave your job if all your money's in 401k. And I, I'm not a big fan of 401ks anymore.
Hmm.
I have been the guy that says you're an idiot if you don't put the money in if you're getting a match.
Yep.
But today I think I've been wrong this entire time,
Hmm.
because had I taken the same dollars I put into the 401k, I could have probably left my W2 5 years before now, quite
Right.
frankly. Um, and because there's better investment options, there's better tax benefits, there's this whole concept of like somebody making 40 grand a year and they're saying that they want to defer their taxes until later. Like if your plan is that you're going to make less than 40 grand a year, so
Yep.
you want to defer your taxes until then, like that is a failed plan and a bad
Yep.
strategy. If anything, you should ask if you can pay more taxes now,
Yep.
because later on you're going to be making more money, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
No,
so
yeah, it comes down to paying tax on the seed versus the harvest. And even if you can have a crystal ball of, okay, year 2039, my tax rate will be whatever, 25%. It's like, well, even if tax rates stay the same, you're going to be paying taxes on more money if you keep deferring.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, sorry. I get excited about that one because I have family members that, have been stuck that I've had people that you see pass away, like you say, within 2, 3 years of retiring,
Yep.
or people that, they retire and then the stock market crashes and they lose 30% of their net worth.
Yep.
It's just, it's a crazy plan. It doesn't make sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
And well, kind of like you said with in the sales corporate culture, you don't have a lot of control. Well, that's just another area, especially if it's invested the way most people are, stocks, bonds, and ETFs, you don't have much control of
yeah,
that either.
yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah. Now, Randy, I know the second time around, with your second stint, you mentioned you were laid off, and I'm assuming at that point you had built up enough passive income streams. Do you remember what your, unfortunately, it was your pink slip day, but shall we say your freedom day from the W-2 workforce?
May 27th, 2023 or 2022.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, gotcha. Okay, so not
Yeah.
not even a year ago. So all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always kind of fun to hear those stories, and other people are like, I think it was October, maybe November. I don't quite remember. And then when you hear someone, it's like, yep, it's this day, this year, this month.
Yeah. No, I can still, like, I can remember it like it was yesterday. Granted, it was only a year ago, but like I remember the phone ringing. I remember kind of expecting something was going to happen because,
Sure.
in corporate America, something happens and the emails start going around and everybody's texting everybody. And yeah, sure enough, I got the invite hit my inbox that I need to hop on a call.
Yeah.
And it's interesting though too. Like I think when I kind of got the nod that it was coming, I ended up spending the half of the day that I had left before getting laid off trying to help my teammates as much as I can to
Okay.
make sure that there was like a smooth transition.
Mm.
Because those are still very good friends of mine. My boss is still a very good friend of mine. Um, and I'm a firm believer that you get out of the universe what you put into it. So,
Hmm.
I know a lot of people were not as gracious as me, and there were f bombs and all kinds of
Yep.
other ugly things. And like I said at the beginning of this, I don't have anything negative to say about the organization. They have a responsibility to their stockholders.
Sure.
Um, so, and that's part of what you're signing up for if you go down the corporate America path. Like
Yep.
it is part of the process. And if you don't like that process, don't get in the game,
Right.
period. Right.
Well,
So that's just my opinion.
no, makes sense. So now, and you've kind of alluded to this a little bit, Randy. Besides, the coworkers, you obviously made a lot of friends. Are there, anything additional that you do miss from the W-2 job, being that we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of that?
Yeah, so I guess there's a couple of things. One, I always associated with very large brands that I took great pride in being a part of those organizations. I definitely I drank the Kool-Aid of the two main organizations that I
Sure.
worked for. So I miss the affiliation piece.
Okay.
I miss being able to share that I'm part of that entity because it did become part of um it's part of who I was. Like I
Okay.
was the guy. I would share the terminology, but you'd know the companies. Go to my LinkedIn if you want to figure out what they were. But I
Sure.
I took I took great pride working for those organizations. And I will say another thing. It's funny. Like a lot of people want to stay in corporate America because of the cost of insurance.
Hmm.
Um, I will tell you, it's not so much the cost of insurance, but the quality of the care that you can
Yeah.
get. Um, like I think this year, worst case scenario, we'll spend, I don't know, call it 10 grand on health insurance,
Hmm.
and medical expenses and those types of things. Like worst case, if we hit our
Right.
max out of pockets, $10,000 a year is not a reason to make a decision on what you do with 33% of your life,
Right.
right? So don't stay in a job because of insurance, but it is convenient and it is much easier knowing that you've got a very large organization standing behind that versus having to go navigate all the craziness and chaos of public insurance. So
Yep, yeah, and maybe that's the topic for I can do a 27-hour long podcast for that topic alone.
yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. But I know a guy now, and I can introduce you to a guy that's really good. So
Okay,
yeah,
good to know.
yeah,
On the flip side, Randy, as like I said, we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of your Freedom Day, we'll call it. But what's been the best part of your journey since then, or what's the best thing about your life now versus being under the thumb of a corporate office, so to speak?
yeah, yeah. Good question. Um, for me, I've moved over into the entrepreneurial world. So I launched a company called Impact Equity. I've got a podcast called The Gen Art of Crushing It. And it's really the first time in my life that I've actually bet on myself
Okay.
100%, and really kind of gone all in. And I hired a one-on-one mindset coach, which sounds a little quirky and all of that. But I'll tell you, the dollars that I spent on that mindset coach have been the very best dollars I have probably ever spent in my entire life, outside of the wedding ring I bought my wife.
All right.
Um, but the tools and the resources and the confidence and the direction that I've gotten from that, and overcoming fears of jumping into the entrepreneur space, um, like that has been the greatest benefit out of this whole thing. And fast forward, call it 8 months from when I got laid off, like I've been able to create a community around me. I have got this business that, quite frankly, um, like I'll probably exceed the income that I made in my W-2
Nice.
by the middle of this year. I'll probably create that run rate that'll be better than anything I ever made. And I didn't think I'd ever make the type of money that I made there.
Sure.
Um, and just like the sky's the limit.
Hmm.
So now that I'm truly the guy driving this bus, and the only thing that stops me is my own fears and limiting beliefs, with a little bit of guidance, I like the future looks very bright, I will
Good.
say. So yeah.
Yeah, that's very good to hear. Randy, for anyone maybe listening to this and maybe they find or they empathize, they've been in your shoes, or maybe they feel that you are there in your shoes, gosh, there's been rumblings of layoffs or, whatever, or you mentioned healthcare. I feel I have to stay at this job because the healthcare premiums, I just feel stuck. I have those golden handcuffs at this job, wherever that is. What piece of advice would you give to them to encourage them to make the leap to entrepreneurship, self-employment, investing, etc.?
Yep. Yeah. So first and foremost, whether you're wanting to potentially become work optional, leave the W-2, decrease your dependence on the W-2, whatever you want to call it. First and foremost, get your financial house in order. And so I mentioned earlier Dave Ramsey and the baby steps, and a lot of people
Sure.
have a lot of very strong opinions about Dave Ramsey. Um, but just imagine if you had zero debt, you had 6 months of all of your expenses sitting in the bank,
Hmm.
and no credit card bills, no house payment or anything like that. Like imagine the freedom you would have, and
Hmm.
imagine the attitude you could bring into your W-2 if you don't need the job. Now, if you want to stay in the W-2 because you want to, then
Sure.
fantastic, right?
Yep.
Do that. And you'll probably be more productive because you're not scared to death that you're going to get fired, right? You'll
Right.
take chances that you wouldn't normally take. But the freedom that you can get from being financially secure, from making good decisions with your finances, like, is the number one most important thing I think anybody should do in this space.
Okay. No, it makes sense. And yeah, definitely good advice. As we close out, Randy, and I want to again thank you for taking the time to come on my show and share your story with my listeners. I'll come up with some really creative marketing term for this, but I call it the soapbox, or I don't know, maybe unscrewed moment. Maybe I'll call it that. But
Yeah.
anything new or that you're working on or excited about here in 2023 that you'd like to share with my listeners?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So part of my story, as you guys heard, is passive income. And I've been fortunate enough to launch a business and a podcast where our sole purpose is educating and inspiring the new passive investor. And what I do is I put one deal per month in front of my investors that I've
Okay.
personally vetted, I'm personally investing in myself, and it gives you diversification across deals, diversification across investment opportunities, diversification across geography, and even asset classes. So
Okay.
it gives that new passive investor the space to kind of dip their toe in this and see if it makes sense for them. And go out to the website and check out all the content I put out there, listen to the podcast, I've got a free giveaway on my website, top 10 questions to ask an apartment syndicator,
Okay.
or just reach out and schedule a call. I love talking about this stuff. It's given me a freedom I never knew that I would have. So it's been an amazing experience.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, and I'll have links to those in the show notes of, like you said, your podcast website. And do you have a YouTube channel as well, Randy, or just the podcast?
There's a YouTube channel. I think there's Instagram, and
Okay.
I think we even have a TikTok channel.
Okay.
I'm not dancing or anything on it though.
Oh,
So
okay. Well, maybe we won't put that in the show notes then. So,
there you go.
all right, sounds good. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story, Randy, and best of luck for you in the rest of 2023.
Thanks so much, John. I really appreciate it.